Hello, School Transportation Nation. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tony Corbin, publisher of STN. This episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. We have a special tech tip brought to you by AppGarden, and I'll also be talking with Mr. Travis Ward from Liquid Spring.
Greetings, nation people. This is Ryan Gray, your fearless editor-in-chief of School Transportation News Magazine. Today, our transportation director guest will be Dawnette Wright from University Place School District in Washington. So, Tony, we have some good news, and that is looking like a reopening of in-person class is going to happen this fall, the new school year.
Ready.
So the indication out of Washington, D.C. and the Biden administration last week was they pushed all schools to reopen, again, in person 5 days a week, at least offer it. It's really of note that immediately after, the nation's largest teachers union, American Federation of Teachers, came out in support of that idea. So many of the balking going on around reopening all the schools has really come from the teachers. Obviously, there's a lot of fear out there about contracting the virus, but as we've seen the vaccine really take hold, the administration is really pushing to have 70% of all American adults get vaccinated. I think it's around about half that right now, maybe 40%. But certainly with the news now that children as young as age 12 can get the Pfizer vaccine, you know, the vaccine is going to be available shortly for kids on those other vaccines. So really, you know, pointing to getting back to school, never a dull moment in this industry. It leads to a lot more anxiety, frankly, because folks I'm talking to, they're still dealing with budget issues, despite the federal stimulus money that's been promised and that is available. But yeah, these folks still need to get the money, right? And they're dealing with driver shortages, but not a moment too soon to get kids back, because there's been so much talk, of course, about them being behind and losing out on their education, but also the mental health issues and just, you know, being able to eat, get that normalcy back in their day. So that is the good news, that there's a lot of work to be done. And the districts are busy at work, extended summer programs that they're preparing for here as the school year ends. But we are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's exciting, Ryan. I mean, it's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for this moment to kind of turn the corner. And I think, yeah, the general sentiment that I hear out in the industry is that things are going to be back to business here in the fall. And yeah, but during the summer, what's that going to look like? And I know you and I have talked about it on multiple occasions. You know, are we going to see an increase in kind of summer school activity? I know there's some extra funding that's being tossed out towards that. And, you know, transportation may be gearing up, depends where you are in the country, to support a larger, like, almost student catch up. So yeah, we'll see how that plays into it. I know Corey Muirhead was on the podcast last week from Logan Bus Company. He was the EVP there, and he talked about the importance of extracurricular activities and field trips and sports. And I know the NFL came out with their schedule for 2021, 2022. So I can only think that, you know, large scale sporting events or children's sports, we might start to see more of that, kind of the outdoor events come back in a bigger way. So keep my eye on that. But I know that's a big part of student health and wellness, is just keeping them active, keeping them moving. I know with our young kids, Ryan, you know, my kids are always in motion. You know, if you're not in motion, they're tearing up your house. So I think everybody wants kids sports and kids athletics to be back in business. And for the school bus industry, that is a major element of everything that everyone does when you're getting these kids to kind of further education as well as physical activity. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I really feel like we're headed in the right direction as an industry, and everybody's gearing up. They're I think prepared now for that cleaning, disinfecting, sanitizing. We've got that cadence down. People are getting their technology, kind of raising their game, you know, to be sure that they can mitigate against any virus or pathogen, even in the future. Like when COVID passes us by, there's going to be something else, right? I remember the H1N1. Then there's a lot of other things that came up along the way, you know, that scare everybody. And the pandemic obviously was the epitome of that. But we as an industry are resilient. And I think that it's going to be exciting to see everybody pivot and innovate coming out of the pandemic.
Innovate is the key word there. As I mentioned, still a lot of challenges. It's, student transporters are not assuming that all the kids are going to come back. Dawnette Wright, who I mentioned earlier, is our guest a little bit later. She's going to talk about her experience up in Washington State, but they're down. Their ridership's been down about half of what it was in a normal year. Now, obviously, the hope is that they're going to get more of that back, but even with the relaxation of the mask mandates, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and kind of the economy and the society reopening, school districts still can require masks. They can still require social distancing. Now, again, you're going to see a hodgepodge kind of depending on where you are in the country. But, a part of this too is that parents are going to still have the option to have their kids in virtual if they are in an area where there's still some spikes, or their kids haven't gotten the vaccine, or they're just scared. So that is becoming a new norm. And I've written about it in the magazine. We've talked about it where, virtual learning in some way, shape, or form is here to stay. And that does have an effect on transportation. So I think that when talking about innovating, routing, you mentioned, Tony, that the cadence has been developed with cleaning and disinfecting. It's also been honed in terms of ridership. And when schools haven't been using them before, seating charts, seating assignments, they're used to seeing a bus that's not as full. So as we get back, and if we still see ridership down, because that's what the trends are telling us, enrollment across the board has been stagnant just leading up to this pandemic. What's it going to look like afterwards? So there's a lot of room there to lean in on technology, for example, routing. How can we route better, more efficiently to, maybe these buses, these particular runs were 75, 80% full before the pandemic. Well, now, even with, taking away some of the social distancing, it's 50%, 60%. How can we do better? How can we be better at what we do to be more efficient, utilize the funds better and still be providing that tip-top service that the children require and they really need. So there's a lot of opportunities still out there.
Yeah, and you touched on it, Ryan. It's kind of like with this pandemic, we've seen this movement towards the school bus as an extension of the classroom. And I sat in on a webinar hosted by Kajit, Transportation Director Billy Hewish at Farmington Municipal Schools in New Mexico, kind of gave his version of, hey, what does a successful student learning Wi-Fi program on the school bus look like? And, it was very interesting how he kind of explained the benefit to students because, he was doing very long rides, like an hour, 2-hour rides. That's a really long time on the school bus. And it really made an enormous impact in learning. He said within the first month of using it, it was 900 hours of student learning. And it wasn't fully even deployed across all his fleet. It was a very small cross section, I think about 37 buses or so. He's about to turn on his entire fleet and do a lot more with that. And he's got the administration's support because now they're seeing all this benefit from this additional learning. I really think it's interesting because it's going to force administrators to really lens like the school bus is part of the school. And we are seeing obviously the air purification, ionization, what's the air quality inside the buses. And we have another webinar coming up on air quality inside the school bus hosted by United Safety on May 25th. You guys can go to stnonline.com/tag/webinar to find that webinar. Sign up. It's free. Some great information there to be had. But guys, let's talk about going back to school again. Contact tracing, so important. And this week's tech tip is brought to you by AppGarden, a leader in K-12 software and school bus routing solutions. Knowing where students are is crucial for safety, and so is gaining control control over getting dropped off at the correct drop-off point and on the correct bus. The Travel Tracker Routing Tablet solution from AppGarden provides full visibility into student ridership. It offers the option to either use system-generated QR codes or student school-issued barcodes. Additionally, parents can view check-in and check-out logs through their free parent portal. Learn more about Travel Tracker for routing at app-garden.com/routing. That's app-garden.com/routing.
So this week I got my first vaccination. So pretty soon, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, once I get my second vaccine and I'm fully vaccinated, I'll be able to ditch that mask, Tony. Looking forward to it. Well, with a caveat, I mean, they're under certain situations. CDC, of course, last week came out and said Americans who are fully vaccinated, they do not need to wear their mask outdoors or in public settings. Now that, again, I mentioned there are some exceptions of that. At the doctor's office, going to hospitals, seeing grandma or grandpa or aunt and uncle at the long-term care facility, going to jail, which hopefully none of you are going to be doing that anytime soon.
No, thank you.
But certain areas like that, CDC said, yes, still wear your mask. But if you are fully vaccinated, you can go ahead and put that thing away in the drawer if you want. I know it's become its own industry, masks. There's all these great designs and whatnot. So I think we'll still see a lot of folks wearing them. And of course, there will be stores and whatnot that require them. So it's probably a good idea to have them on you. But definitely looking forward to that. We still do know that despite the studies showing that if you are fully vaccinated, it's over 90% effective to mitigating the spread, but you can still get it. We saw last week the New York Yankees, the Major League Baseball team, they have a huge outbreak right now. Last I saw, like 8 players and or coaches that were fully vaccinated and they have COVID-19, so they've got this strain up there. So continue to exercise caution. But when we're, talking about getting back to school and now children ages 12 and up are going to be eligible to get the vaccine, that's going to be, really greasing the wheels, if you will, to getting folks back.
Yeah, Ryan, with masks specifically, I mean, within the school setting, I know at my daughter's school, everybody's wearing the mask at drop off and pick up, and they're wearing the masks in the classrooms, and kids are, I think, flexible. They're used to wearing the masks now. It's like, oh, Daddy, I forgot my mask at home. I got to go get it. Or, oh, don't worry, hon. I've got 5 more packed in your backpack. So I think that the general consensus in schools is I'm not sure people are going to be taking off the masks. I know when you go out to eat these days, depending on where you're at, we joke with my friends. Hey, we go out to dinner with a couple of friends. Hey, we're going to go out for an unprotected dinner because we won't have masks on, right? It's kind of a joke at this point, right? Because everybody's wearing masks when you walk into the restaurant. Then when you sit down, you take off your mask, but all the servers have their masks on, all the restaurant staff. And I think the same goes on the school bus, right? So the driver may continue to wear his mask or her mask, but the students may not. So I guess we'll see. But if the school bus is still that extension of the classroom, masks are likely to be required in some places, but not in others. It just simply depends on people's comfort level. I guess how the state feels about it. Is it required? Is it not? No, California is probably the extreme, maybe to some other places like Texas and Florida where it's wide open. So different feel everywhere, Ryan. I mean, what are you hearing from folks in terms of requiring the mask on a school bus or in schools still, even with these CDC recommendations? Because I feel like the recommendations, it's like, it changes on the regular basis. So that's just the flavor of the week.
Absolutely. And CDC is well known for changing their minds over the past year as they've learned more about how this virus is spread. And we know it's mostly spread airborne. But a lot of the folks are saying, and a lot of the school districts are saying, that regardless in these states that are relaxing or doing away with the mask mandates, they're still requiring it. And, like I said earlier, I think a lot of folks will continue to wear them. And there will be requirements going into certain stores and restaurants. I mean, those are private businesses and they can tell you, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. That was actually the headline of an article that Taylor Hannon wrote for us looking at this exact topic. So, there will be some school districts inevitably that decide and have decided already, going back to the beginning of the school year that masks weren't required. Again, it depends on where you live. If you're in an urban area, a highly populated area, most likely you're going to be in a mask mandated zone for a while. And that's just going to be kind of the way of life. And then as we progress, again, I think that masks have wound their way into our fabric of our lifestyle, that folks are going to be continuing to wear masks, or at least certain folks will be. And, we've really seen this spread worldwide. So I think masks are here to stay in some shape or form. Again, there's so many cool designs out there and team logos that so many folks have indoctrinated that into their fashion. So we're going to still see masks, but it's just an indicator here that as things relax, and hopefully we don't see another spread as we get closer to this, all elusive herd immunity, that again, masks up and go about our lives again.
Yeah, Ryan, regardless, going back to school, it's going to be stressful for both the kids, student transporters, when we look at that, new school year, right? Your district's routing software provider should be more than a vendor. They should be a partner to help you get ready for opening day. The experts at TransFinder get that. They're not just the creators of an award-winning routing logistics software product. They have an award-winning support team. They've created a back-to-school package designed to give you peace of mind. This package is a comprehensive and customized plan to get you up and running with the safest and most efficient routes. It starts with having a single point of contact, creating a timeline with critical milestones, and allowing the experts to clean up your data, import new data, and communicate with your community. Going back to school has never been so easy. Call 800-373-3609 or email marketing@transfinder.com for more information. And don't forget to drop STN podcast in that subject line. Let them know we sent you. All right, a couple of great guests coming up next. Stay tuned. All right, friends, want to introduce you to a friend on the STN podcast today, Mr. Travis Ward from Liquid Spring. Thanks for joining us, Travis.
Hey, thank you, Tony, for inviting me to come along.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis, can you share a little bit about what Liquid Spring does? How does that product work on a school bus?
So, Tony, Liquid Spring is a compressible liquid suspension system that reduces 45% of the vibration from the road to the bus and reduces 50% of the body rock inherent to a high center of gravity vehicle, making it much more comfortable for the driver and the passengers on board the bus.
Excellent. And if I wanted to add Liquid Spring to my bus, how do I go about doing that? What's the process?
Currently, we are teamed up with Navistar. We're working on Thomas and Bluebird, but you can order through Navistar directly from your dealer as a factory option on the Type C school buses. Also available for the Collins Type A's or most other Type A's through the dealer as an option.
And what's typically the use case, right? So I guess I view ride quality and comfort that may be specifically tuned to children with special needs. So, kids that maybe are sensitive to those sorts of things. Is that what you typically find is a pretty common use case that people are interested in investing in a Liquid Spring suspension?
Yes, that's actually correct. So typically what we're finding is the special needs buses that are used to haul their children with multiple different issues, that vibration and harshness will affect their daily behaviors, is where we're most beneficial to those buses.
And would you say it's safe to say that, this is a great enhancement for school bus drivers because that's kind of their office, right? Like they're driving in this thing every day and they might not realize what life is like without a liquid spring suspension. And, what is typically a driver reaction to a bus that's not had it forever and now they're riding on a liquid spring? What's the difference? What's the reaction from drivers?
Tony, I can tell you that the reaction from drivers is amazing. In today's time and economy, we know that it's very hard to get drivers, whether it be school bus or shuttle bus, and to retain those drivers because the vehicles don't operate as a normal vehicle. That's what they're so used to. So with our product, we can make a typical buckboard 1950s vehicle ride like a Cadillac Escalade from 2020.
Wonderful.
Check out Liquid Spring online at liquidspring.com or through social media at Liquid Spring to learn more.
Well, I want to thank Travis for coming on the podcast today. Appreciate you sharing a little about Liquid Spring. Next up, Ryan Gray talks with Donette Wright.
Welcome to the School Transportation Nation stage. Donette Wright, Transportation Director for University Place School District in Washington State. Thank you so much, Donette, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So any of you all out there that attended our virtual Green Bus Summit last month might know the name University Place School District because it was one of the winners of our Green Bus Awards for the small public fleet category. Donette, why did you guys win? Tell us, what are you running up there when it comes to green buses?
Well, over the last 5 years, we've transformed almost 50% of the fleet to alternate fuels, whether that be the propane or electric buses. So right now we have 19 propane buses and 1 electric bus.
Okay, and you used grants for those?
I did actually. I would say out of the 19 propane buses that I have, I used grant money on at least 17 of them. And then the electric bus, of course, it was grant money as well.
So a lot of folks obviously are utilizing the VW money out there for adopting, especially electric buses. When it came to the one bus that you have so far in Washington State there at your district, did you use VW money? Are there other funds? I know California is kind of leading the way with, all these funds that are available. What was available to you there?
Right. I did just use the VW grant money for that, and that did help with the infrastructure, actually paid for the infrastructure and a good portion of the bus as well.
Okay. And so you mentioned of the 19 propane buses and then the 1 electric. How large is your fleet total? You said it's about 50%, so it's around 40 some odd buses?
I have 43 buses in my fleet. Yeah, 43.
Okay. So the other buses that you're running, are they diesel? Gasoline? What?
Yes, they are. They're all diesel.
And what's been the impact when looking at maintenance costs? Because that's something that we hear a lot, both in terms of propane and electric. And, I think you guys have had the electric for not as long as the propane. So you probably have more data that's proving out for maintenance on the propane side. But that's a big win there, right? You're seeing a lot of reductions in not only the fuel costs, of course, but in maintaining those vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a huge reduction in cost. It's about, actually on our propane buses, it's about 50% of the total cost of operations is the diesels. So, the mechanics love them, the oils, tires, everything is just cheaper maintenance and upkeep on them. Yeah, it's really helping my bottom line for sure.
And in terms of the staff, as you just mentioned, it's making their lives a little bit easier. I mentioned this during the conference last month, that one reader reached out to us when we were talking about electric buses, one of our articles, and said, well, why do you need me anymore? If this the reduction in maintenance, how's that learning curve been for your staff there?
Yeah, that was interesting, actually. When we first looked into going with propane buses, there was definitely a lot of education that had to take place. So got some people out from Roush and Bluebird, and they came out and did some tech, what's the words I'm looking for here, Ryan?
training?
Yeah, there you go. Tech training. So they came out with my maintenance crew and did a training with them. I also took my lead mechanic and we went back to Georgia to the plant and to Roush to their plant and had some really good hands-on training there. So that was really good for them. Yeah, so my mechanics actually, they really like working on them at this point because they're easy and pretty much right now they're staying on the road and my mechanics couldn't be happier.
And in terms of electric, you have the one bus. And how long have you had it actually there in the district?
Yeah, we actually only took delivery of it April 1st. So we don't have a whole lot of data on that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hopefully you won't need to for a while because, obviously I'm sure you're relying on your dealer there to troubleshoot any issues. But in terms of that ramp up, I mean, there's training involved with that too. So that one day the mechanics will be able to address whatever maintenance needs there are. And of course, the promise is that there's going to be a lot fewer needs. But, looking at charging infrastructure, that's a brand new thing, no longer, utilizing fuel pumps and being able to at least navigate those systems. That's got to be part of your plans as well, to indoctrinate your employees on those and kind of, get them understanding what's going to be involved in the future.
Right. And I did have my techs on board with me, right at the very beginning stages when we had our utility company come out and do, the survey of the property to see where we would put it and just talking to them about, every step of the way, just having them involved and knowing what was going on and what they could do to be helpful in the process. We also went to the dealership and they did a training up there as well and had all of the different utility companies from the state of Washington were present and did some talking up there as well. So that was very informative and really helped the mechanics then too, because, they put the bus up on the lift and let the mechanics crawl all around it. And that was a really good day for the mechanics.
Absolutely. I know where that shut-off valve is for the electricity, for the grounding of the buses. I know there's a lot of that kind of safety element that's just different. Not that these buses aren't safe, but it's just a brand new experience. So there's different things that you need to learn how to do. So now we were mentioning budget a little bit earlier. Obviously, the school year is coming to a close here. How much more time do you guys have in the school year?
We have 5 weeks.
All right. So it's fast coming upon you. And that means, of course, getting ready for next school year and coming out of COVID. I mean, hopefully, that's an accurate way to put it. Things are slowly opening back up as the vaccine makes its rounds. What's the current situation in your area right now in terms of COVID-19?
So right now we're running a hybrid system where students have some time at home on their computers and some time in the classroom if they choose to be in the classroom. And we have AB programs. The younger students go morning or afternoon, and the older kids go on an AB day program. So we're transporting about 50% of our student population right now. So that's, not bad, but certainly not what we would like it to be as far as, having kids on buses, but we are transporting right now. So that's good. We've got buses on the road.
So, and that obviously has a budget impact because I know, every state reimburses or funds transportation a little bit differently. But if you are transporting half the kids that you normally would, just if you look at it, then one could surmise, you're getting half the aid that you normally would. And I know there's a lot more intricacies to that than that. But what we're eyeing anyways is last week, the Biden administration said, hey, they want all kids to return to in-person 5-day-a-week school. And the American Federation of Teachers backed that last week as well. So certainly the big push is to get kids all back to school, in-person classes. But I think we know that not all of those kids, as you mentioned earlier, are going to choose, or their parents are not going to choose to have them go back. So what are you looking at in terms of being the leader of the department and trying to navigate kind of a lot of those unknowns still? There's still a lot of uncertainty and how that's going to shake out and where that's going to leave you guys in terms of getting reimbursement, planning ahead.
Boy, you're right. It's so much unknown right now. It's crazy. So yeah, and we're like everybody else. We are funded on riderships, bottoms and seats. So having the lack of ridership this year is certainly having an effect on our budget. And forecasting is crazy right now, just trying to even imagine what we're going to have. Our governor also just saying that every school has to have in-person school next year. We also have the availability of the online, but they have to have in-person schooling next year. So that's good news. We'll have students back on buses and back in schools, but to know what that looks like right now, I have no idea what my ridership will look like as of this point. So that's a little concerning.
And also concerning too is, well, at least on a national front, the school bus driver shortage. Talk about unknowns. What's your current staffing issues that you have, and kind of how's that looking to impact you, not only for next school year, but summer? I mean, we're hearing a lot about extended summer programs to try to catch kids up, and transportation is going to be necessary to, make that happen.
Sure. We're having the extended summer school as well. So we have only 2 weeks off during the entire summer. So one at the beginning and one at the end. And we were actually very blessed. A lot of school districts in this area completely laid off their entire transportation staff. My school district was lucky enough that we got to maintain our staff. We did deliver technology. We delivered meals. We delivered homework packets door to door. We did so many things that we never thought we would ever do in a billion years. And logistically, it was crazy trying to get all of that planned and done at the last minute like that. But luckily, we were able to keep all of our drivers on the payroll. So I saw a very small percentage of my drivers actually leave during that time. So I'm grateful for that. I was also able to talk my district into allowing me to continue to train drivers during COVID. So we had to come up with a very strict training plan and process on how we could maintain safety during that time. But we were able to train drivers and get them through the process. So I actually came out of, well, not out of yet, but coming out of in pretty good shape for a school district in my area. My peers are always letting me know how hard and difficult it is out there. And luckily right now, let me knock on wood, I'm looking okay right now. So I'm happy about that.
Excellent. Well, hopefully that 2 weeks of vacation that you get, you put it to good use. And, maybe I know you're a big CrossFitter, be going out there and competing or doing something, tossing tires or throwing boulders. Tell us, how'd you get into CrossFit and the exercise?
It was about 6 years ago, and I just needed something that I could do that would allow me to disconnect from work because, in our position, so often you can't unplug, you can't get away. So it was, I like to be physically active. I'm a very physically active person. And so I just found a CrossFit gym and I went in, and it's one of those things for that 1 hour a day. I can't think about anything else. I have to actually think about what I'm doing at that time so I don't hurt myself, frankly. But I certainly do enjoy it. And yeah, I'll be looking at doing some competitions this summer for sure.
Good. And it's always interesting to me whenever I drive past a CrossFit center or studio. Right next door is a chiropractor. So I'm sure you may have visited the chiropractor as well too. But everyone check out the story that Associate Editor Taylor Hannon did with Dawnette. It's hard to believe, Dawnette, last March. So right when we were getting into this whole pandemic reality, we were posting the article. So when she was, I'm sure, talking to you about it, we were kind of going along as normal, and we were hearing this thing about COVID-19, but and then all of a sudden the world came to a standstill. So
screeching halt.
Yeah, head over to stonline.com and just search Dawnette Wright in the search bar, and you can find that article from last year. And certainly good luck to you. If you are doing any competing, definitely keep us in the loop with that. We want to know. Maybe we can even catch you on, I don't know if they have CrossFit TV now or something, but we'll be on the lookout.
Certainly not that caliber. I wish, but no.
You never know. Hey, you never know. Dawnette, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Special thanks to Travis Ward at Liquid Spring and Dawnette Wright. Also, extra special thank you to my co-host, Mr. Ryan Gray. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. We appreciate all our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them. This episode brought to you by TransFinder, Liquid Spring, and App Garden. I want to thank you all for listening. Really appreciate you guys. The nation, we love you so much. We want you to continue to subscribe, stream, review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stnpodcast.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, don't forget STN live conferences are back. We've got STN Expo Indianapolis in October, STN Expo Reno in December, and our Transporting Students with Disabilities and Special Needs Conference coming up in November. Be sure you check all that information out at stnexpo.com. We want to meet, want to get back together and see everybody this fall. We're real excited about it. Our team's working really hard on the agendas. We're getting lots of exhibitors. We're going to have lots of great content for you to absorb, networking opportunities. Can't wait to see y'all. Don't forget, visit stnonline.com for all the latest news, analysis, stimulus funding, everything affecting the school transportation industry. We will see you next week, nation. Take care.